Hello again. I've put a video together on how to remove the front wheel off your CBR600 model onwards, and also how to put it back on again the correct way, and setting the fork leg on the floating side. Hopefully that makes sense to you. If not, it'll become clear when you see the video. But it's very important that you put the front wheel back on properly and set the left hand fork leg to set it in its right position. So it'll become clear when you see the video. Okay, now to remove the front wheel on the CBR600, first thing to do is remove the brake calipers. Once you've taken those two bolts out, you can just slide them off the disc like that, and then it's a good idea to put your calipers back, tie them onto something so they're out of the way. I've sort of tied that out of the way back here. Now I'm just going to go over to the other side and remove the other caliper, so I don't need to show you that. Okay, so I've removed both the calipers now and they're tied back out of the way, so as you can see the wheel spins freely. Now, first thing to do is to remove that 22mm. The next thing to do, loosen the 12mm bolts in the bottom of the forks on both sides. Right, so that's loose. I'll just do the other side. Well, I'll just bring the camera over to here. The 12mm bolts here are loose on both sides. I can just put a screwdriver or something just in here on the end of the axle and just give it a bit of a tap so that it protrudes on the other side. So there you can see it there. So now there's a hole through there which is about 5mm. So put something through that hole so that you can take the weight of the wheel. So here's my hand here. I've got my hand up at the top of the wheel on the other side, and I'm taking the weight of it, and I can just pull this out like that. Now the wheel will fall. So now the wheel's free. I should be able to take that out. Now this. There you go. Okay, we're ready to put the wheel back in now. First thing to do is when you put the wheel between the forks, make sure you've got it the right way. Now there's usually an arrow, a direction arrow on the disc or the disc holder, but in this case, see the arrow. I've got it in the correct way. Now, the important thing when putting these wheels back in is there's a fixed side and a floating side for the axle, and a lot of people don't realise that. So I'm going to show you what all that means and how to set your forks. The way to do it is with your left hand, lift the wheel up. Here's the axle, so I can lift it up in between the forks and then push the axle through. Now, I'm only going to get it to there at the moment, so it's just hanging on one side, and what we've got to do is grease up this end of the axle. This is called the floating end. So I'll explain that in a moment. Put a bit of molybdenum grease on there. Now, put my bar through there again, and I should be able to push that in. Yep. So it's in through the other side. Push it into there. Now, the first step is to put the 22mm bolt in the end of the axle and tighten it to the correct torque. The correct torque for this is 59 Newton meters. And then I've got a hex bit there as well, which I'll put into the other end of the axle. So the hex bit can go in there, Okay, so this is for holding the hex in, and I set the torque wrench to 59 Newton meters. Right, so that's tightened up. So this is the fixed end of the axle. So the next thing we do is tighten the two 12mm. The axle holder nuts have to be tightened to 22. Okay, so that's that side finished. So there's the other end of the axle. This is the floating end that I greased up with molybdenum grease. So the next step is we've got to set the forks. So make sure these are nice and loose, and it's best to set them without the brakes on, so like without the calipers in position. So if you haven't got a stopper for the front wheel, and this stand has, you know, you can put a brick or a block of wood or something in front of the wheel, and I'll show you what to do. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to take the stand off. And with the wheel hard up against the stopper here, grab the handlebars, I feel like an 8, and pull down. So I'm pulling down as hard as I can, pump it up and down several times. And what that does is it sets the position of this fork leg. So now that I've done that, I can just carefully tighten that up. And I can actually see a little bit of grease there where it's moved and found its position. So now I'll tighten these just carefully so I don't move it. That's how you do it. So those two fork legs should now be parallel. An important step, and a lot of people don't do it. And if you read the workshop manual, it tells you that that's what you must do. So now I can put this back in. And then once you've got your calipers back on, the last thing to do is to pump the brake lever several times to make sure that pads are against the discs. So that's okay. Put my safety wire back on. just to show you how it should be once you've had the wheel off and back on again and set the forks correctly. Now I'm pumping the brake lever a few times, and look at this. That's what your wheels should be like. It should just spin like that with very little drag. Often they don't spin like that because the forks haven't been set properly. There you have it. That's how straightforward it is to remove the front wheel and how to set the forks correctly. So thanks for watching.